The twin moons of Elmora floated above the shining spires of the Zyran capital. From the tallest tower, the Crystal Hall Princess Alira looked down at her people with a heavy heart. She stood straight in her silver-blue robes, her violet eyes sharp like blades, but inside, she was drowning in fear. The council had spoken. You must marry, princess. The Empire needs an alliance with Lord Theric. Lord Theric was rich, powerful, but cruel. His people ruled through fear. If she married him, she would become nothing more than a crown decoration, silent, used, forgotten. She couldn't let that happen. But there was only one way out. She needed a bonded mate. A Zyran bond was sacred. Once bonded, no one, not even the Empress herself, could break it. It was rare, and it had to look real. Alira needed someone unexpected, someone no one would suspect. She pressed a button on her wristband. "Bring me the human," she said, "Commander." Jace Thorne entered the royal chamber, his boots clicking on the crystal floor. He was tall, scarred, and didn't look like a man who belonged among gold walls and velvet carpets. He had short brown hair, a stern face, and wore a black uniform with a single Patrith Federation, retired. He bowed quickly. "You asked for me, Your Highness?" Alira turned toward him. "Yes. I have a proposal for you." Jace raised an eyebrow. "The last time someone said that, I woke up in a swamp on Arcta 7. She ignored his dry humor. "I need a bonded mate, for show. Fake. Just for a few months." Jace stared. "You want me to marry you?" "Fake marry," she corrected. "The council won't force a political match if I'm bonded, but it must appear real." He folded his arms. "Why me?" "Because you are not from here. You're a human. No one will suspect this is a plan. It will confuse the council. And," she paused, "you're already under my protection detail. You're useful and quiet." He looked at her like she had lost her mind. "I'm a soldier, not a royal actor." "Pay you," she said calmly, "enough to help your brother on Earth? Isn't he still on the medical list?" Jace's expression changed, just for a second. "You did research. I do my homework." There was a long silence. Finally, Jace sighed. "And what do I have to do?" "Stay close. Hold my hand in public. Attend events. Sleep in the royal wing, but not in my room. Simple things. No actual bond. Just pretend. And when it ends, you go free. With credits. No. We'll ever know." He rubbed his chin. "This is the worst idea I've ever agreed to. And we are both fools," Alira said, standing up. "But we'll play our roles. For survival." 3 days later, the court gathered in the Grand Hall. The Empress sat on her throne, wearing a crown of living light. The council members stood around her, dressed in long flowing robes. Princess Alira stepped forward with Jace beside her. War-formal Zyran armor, adjusted for human sharp silver with blue trim. Murmurs filled the room. A human? At a royal event? The Empress narrowed her eyes. "What is this, daughter?" Lyra's voice was clear. "I have chosen my bondmate." Gasps echoed. Counselors looked at each other. Lord Theric, standing at the edge, clenched his jaw. Alira continued. "His name is Jace Thorne, former human commander. He is brave, loyal, and mine." He stepped forward and bowed, took Alira's hand gently, fingers brushing hers like a practiced move. "We completed the pre-bond rites," Alira added. "The bond is now private, but true. You bonded." "With a human," one counselor shouted. "It is within the law," she answered. "Barely," Theric growled. "This is an insult to the great houses." "It is my right," Alira said, her voice cold as ice. The Empress studied Jace, her eyes, glowing with royal power, locked onto him like a hunter. "You," she said, "understand what this means?" "Yes," Jace replied, "and I accept." There was silence. Finally, the Empress gave a nod. "Then so be it. The bond is accepted. For now." Night. Jace stood on the balcony of the royal wing. The air smelled like blossoms and wind. Alira stepped beside him. Her hair was loose, her robe soft, glowing slightly under the stars. That went better than expected. She said, "I nearly lost my life to political growling," he replied. She smiled a little. "You did well? You really think this will stop Theric?" "For now, but he'll look for weakness." Jace looked at her. "Oh, are you sure you want me in this? I don't have many people I trust, and fewer I can control. I'm not easy to control." She turned to him. "Exactly, that's what makes you valuable." For a moment, they looked at each other not as soldier and princess, but as two people caught in a storm they didn't create. "I'll stay," Jace said. "But if anyone tries to hurt you, fake bond or no tie won't hold back." Alira nodded slowly. "Then you are more of a husband than most already." Over the next few days, the palace changed. Servants bowed to Jace. Counselors watched him. News feeds across the galaxy spoke of the shocking bond between a human and a royal. Some mocked them, some admired. But no one ignored. They dined together at royal meals. Jace sat beside her during meetings. He even learned to wear the Zyran hand rings, a symbol of bonding. But when they were alone, they stayed distant, professional. Until one night at a royal ball, Alira reached out and held his hand. Just for the cameras, but she didn't let go. And neither did he. And in that simple moment between politics and pretend, something real began to stir. Jace Thorne didn't like crowds, especially when those crowds wore glowing robes, floated 3 inches off the ground, stared at him like he was a strange bug. He stood beside Princess Alira at the royal garden banquet. Thousands of nobles filled the crystal-lit courtyards, eating glowing fruits, sipping gas from floating cups, and whispering behind long sleeves. Jace hated it, but he didn't show it. Instead, he stood straight in his formal Zyran robes. He looked calm, strong, like the husband of a princess should. Alira leaned close to him. Her breath was soft against his neck. "Smile, husband," she whispered. "You look like you're preparing for war." "Been in war," Jace muttered back. "This is worse." Alira gave a small, amused smile. "Just hold my hand, that's enough." He took her hand again, firm but gentle. Her skin was warm, almost too warm, and that strange Zyran glow danced across her veins when she was near him. They walked together past nobles who bowed, smiled, and whispered behind fake politeness. Some nodded with respect. Others looked disgusted. One alien noble even spit on the ground, but no one challenged the bond. Not directly. They had done their job, or so they thought. Later that night, in Alira's private chamber, Jace stood by the window, watching the stars. She entered, her royal cloak gone. She wore a soft silver gown now, without armor or crown. "You did well tonight," she said, pouring herself a drink. "I don't like being stared at like a zoo animal," he replied. "You are a zoo animal," she teased. "A Terran warrior. Rare breed," he gave her a look. She smiled, again smaller this time, a tired smile. "I don't enjoy these events either," she admitted, sitting on the couch. "But we must pretend. It's how this world works." Jace turned. "You're not just pretending anymore." She blinked. "Do you mean you're not cold like before? You smile more. You let your guard down." Alira looked away. "Maybe I'm tired of being alone." There was silence. He sat down across from her. "Why me, Alira? Why not choose a Zyran actor? Or someone trained to play your husband?" She hesitated, then said softly, "Because I needed someone who wouldn't try to use me. You're not interested in power. You don't care for politics. And you're honest. You don't know how to lie with a smile like they do." Jace nodded slowly. "I was a soldier. I followed orders. But when the war ended, Earth didn't need us anymore. My brother needed surgery, but our credits ran dry." She looked up at him. "That's why you took the job." "That's why I stayed," he corrected. "But now, I'm not sure." She tilted her head. "You regret it?" "No, but something's changing, and I don't know what it is." The next morning, disaster struck. Jace was walking through the training grounds when he saw a flash of red light. Instinct kicked in, pushed forward, leaping toward the palace gate hand. tackled Alira just as a small energy bolt exploded behind her. Guards swarmed the area. Jace stood, gun already in his hand. Sniper roof 3. The guards rushed. Alira sat up, eyes wide. Her hand went to her chest. "You saved me," she whispered. Jace offered his hand. "That's the job, right?" But Alira looked shaken. "No, that wasn't part of the act. You could have died. I've faced worse." She touched his arm, just for a second. "Still, thank you." Later that evening, Lord Theric appeared in the council chamber. He stood tall, dressed in crimson armor. His voice was smooth and full of venom. "I demand an investigation," he said. "The sniper came from a human-made weapon." From Earth, Alira stood beside Jace, her voice strong. "We don't know that," Convenient Theric sneered. "Perhaps the human wants to remove you himself." Jace stepped forward. "Say that again?" The Empress raised her hand. "Enough." She looked at Jace with sharp eyes. "Do you have enemies, Commander?" "Plenty," he replied. "Not here, not now." The Empress nodded. "Then find the truth. Together, I won't have chaos in my palace." As they left the chamber, Jace whispered to Alira, "He's getting desperate." She nodded. "He wants to break us. Make the council doubt the bond. We'll need to convince them harder." The next few days, Jace and Alira were everywhere, attending speeches, hosting dinners, even visiting the outer towns. Jace carried children, laughed with traitors. He learned to greet elders the Zyran way. Alira watched him closely. She had hired a soldier, but she had found a partner, and something inside her was starting to warm. One evening, they visited a medical center built after the war. Alira stood on stage, giving a speech. Jace stood behind her, watching with quiet pride. When she spoke of peace, her voice cracked slightly. "For too long, we lived with fear. But now, we live with hope. And part of that hope is standing right beside me." She looked at Jace, and for the first time, her eyes didn't look like a ruler's. They looked like a woman's. The crowd cheered. Jace simply gave a small nod. Later that night, in their private sitting room, Jace leaned on the couch, tossing a small glowing orb in the air. "You were good today," he said. Alira walked in with 2 cups. "You were better." Even bowed to that grumpy old healer. He deserved it. He's fixed 3 kids with no equipment. She handed him a cup. "There." Fingers brushed. For a moment, they didn't move. "I meant it," she said softly. "Meant what?" "What I said in the speech, that you're part of my hope." Jace looked at her. Slowly, he said, "It's getting harder to tell where the acting stops." Alira smiled sadly. "Then we're doing it right." But her heart beat faster, and her hands trembled just a little. One night, Alira was reading reports when Jace entered, holding a strange metal box. "What's that?" she asked. "A gift," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "You brought me a box." He opened it. Inside was a small device, an old Terran music chip. "I had this with me during the war," he said. "Thought you might want to hear something." "From my world." She touched it gently. "Thank you." I pressed the button. Soft music filled the air, a slow, haunting melody played on a human piano. Alira closed her eyes. "It's beautiful." Jace sat beside her. "It reminded me of home. I've never been to Earth," she said. "I've only seen the pictures." He looked at her. "Maybe one day you'll see it." With me, Alira opened her eyes, and for the first time, she didn't think of politics, or Theric, or the Empire. She thought only of him, and how real this was starting to feel. The starship Velmor's Grace moved quietly through the stars, carrying Princess Alira and Commander Jace toward the edge of the Empire. Their mission was simple: speak with the rebel colony on Varnic 3 and bring peace before war returned. But nothing about this trip felt right. Jace sat in the ship's war room, checking his gear. Blaster charged, knife clean, armor secure. His instincts were screaming. Across from him, Alira stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the stars drift past. "You're too quiet," Jace said. She glanced back. I don't trust this mission, either. Do one, he replied. Too fast. Too convenient. Why send us instead of the diplomats? She looked at him. Because they want us out of the palace. Jace nodded slowly. You think Therak's behind it? Of course. He needs space. If we're gone, even for a day, he'll work in the shadows. Jace stood up, walked to her. Then we be careful. Watch each other's backs. Alira looked at him with soft eyes. It's like we always do. Jace hesitated, then reached for her. Hand no cameras. No crowd this time. She didn't pull away. They landed on Varnaka 3. During a sandstorm, the rebel leaders were waiting with tight smiles and too many armed guards. Alira stepped down first, her royal robes whipping in the wind. Jace followed in full battle gear. Princess, the colony leader said, we're honored. Let's skip the lies, Jace said. Tell us what you want. The leader chuckled. Your husband speaks his mind. Alira gave a polite smile. He always does. They were led to a rough stone building, part council hall, part trap. Jace scanned the walls, hidden weapons. Narrow exits. It's quiet, this doesn't feel. Like peace, he whispered. No, Alira agreed. It feels like a setup. That night, while the rebels drank and celebrated, Jace stayed awake. When the attack came, he was ready. The first explosion hit just after midnight. Jace grabbed Alira and threw her down behind a stone pillar as fire lit the sky. Rebel soldiers turned on them, blasters raised. Jace shot fast, clean. 1, 2, 3 attackers down. He pulled Alira through the back door and into the dusty hills. Where's the ship? She asked, coughing. Gone, he said. Sabotaged. They ran through the dark sands, chased by soldiers. At one point, Alira tripped. Jace lifted her in his arms and kept moving. They hid in a cave by sunrise, both breathing hard. That was not a random attack, Jace said. Therak paid them. He wants me dead, Alira whispered. And you too, no, Jace said. He doesn't care about me, but he wants to break the bond. If you die, the bond is over. Alira leaned her head against the cave wall. Her royal glow had faded. She looked like a tired woman now, not a princess. Jace sat beside her. Get out. I promise. She looked at him. You should have left me. He turned to her, sharp. Don't say that. I'd carry you through fire if I had to. Alira's eyes filled with tears. Why, Jace? Why do you care so much? We started as strangers. This was fake. Paused. Then said quietly, it doesn't feel fake anymore. She froze. He looked away. Forget I said that. But she reached out, touched his face. No, don't. I feel it too. Jace turned back, shocked. You do? Alira nodded slowly. It started as a lie. But every time you stood beside me, every time you protected me, something changed. I sat there, eyes locked, and in. The quiet of that cave, surrounded by sand, danger, and death, they kissed. Not for show, not for politics, but because it felt real by nightfall. They left the cave and started walking through the desert toward an old signal tower. They fought. Off to more groups. Jace took a blade to his side. Alira helped stitch him up with trembling hands. You bleed too much, she muttered. I get that a lot, he joked weakly. She smiled through her fear. Don't you dare die. I need my fake husband. He gave a faint grin. Highness. When they finally reached the signal tower, Jace climbed it and sent a distress code. While he worked, Alira sat below, staring up at the stars. So many things had changed. She had power, status, a throne waiting. But all she wanted right now was him. When Jace came down, limping slightly, she ran to him. Help is coming, he said. Royal ship should be here in 2 hours. Alira held his face in her hands. Thank you. Stared at her. I don't want to go back. What do you mean? I don't want to go back to fake. I don't want to pretend anymore. She breathed in, then don't. I'm not a prince, Alira. I'm just a human soldier. You deserve someone. She cut him off with a kiss. You're not just anything, she whispered. You're mine. 2 hours later, the rescue ship landed with thunder. The Empress herself had sent it, when they arrived back at the capital. The palace was chaos. Reporters, nobles, questions. The Empress summoned them at once. "You were nearly killed," she said coldly. "And now rumors spread that your bond has deepened." "It's true," Alira said. "The bond is real now. I want it formalized." The room went silent. The Empress's eyes narrowed. "Are you prepared to defend this in front of the full council?" "Yes. And you, human." Jace stepped forward. "I don't care about crowns, but I care about her." "That's enough," the Empress sighed. "Very well. Prepare the bonding ceremony." But not everyone was pleased in the shadows. Lord Theric watched the news. He smiled darkly. "Let them bond," he whispered. "I'll break them both soon enough." Zyran bonding was no small ritual. It was ancient, sacred. Once complete, it could not be undone, not by council, crown, or even bloodline. It bound lives into one path. Princess Alira stood in her private chamber wearing a glowing white robe. The silk flowed like liquid light. Her violet eyes stared into the mirror, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Behind her, Lady Vena, her old advisor, stepped forward. "You're really doing this?" The old woman asked gently. "Yes," Alira said. "With a human," Alira turned. "With the man who saved my life twice, with the man who looked past the crown and saw me." Vena smiled softly. "Then may the stars bless this bond." Across the palace, Jace Thorne adjusted his collar and armor. He wasn't used to wearing ceremonial clothes, but these were made just for him. Deep black, with silver patterns from both Earth and Zyran tradition. He looked into the mirror and shook his head. "This is insane," he whispered to himself. But he meant it in a good way. He had come here just to earn some credits. Now, he was about to bond with a princess, a woman he truly cared for. There was a knock. It was General Vorik, one of the Empress's guards. Tall, strict, and sharp as a blade. "The council has questions before the bond," he said. Jace raised an eyebrow. "Questions?" The general nodded. "Come with me." Inside the council chamber, things were tense. Jace stood before 12 robed figures. The Empress watched from above, expression unreadable. Counselor Dar spoke first. "You were hired too. Protect her, were you not?" "Yes," Jace said. "And before that, you served in the Earth Federation." "I did. You were paid, correct, to pretend to be her bondmate?" The room went silent. Jace hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." At first, gasps filled the chamber. Counselor Mora leaned forward. "This bond is based on a lie." "No," Jace said firmly. "It started as a job, but what we feel now." "Real?" another counselor barked. "A convenient love story? Just in time for power?" Jace frowned. "I don't want power. I never did. I fought wars to protect people, not to sit on thrones." The Empress stood. "Enough. Duh." She looked down at Jace. "One last question. Do you love her?" Jace looked up at her, straight into the eyes of a ruler feared across 5 systems. "Yes, I love her." No hesitation. No doubt. The Empress stared for a moment, then nodded. "The bond may proceed." Ow! The bonding hall was carved from living crystal. It shimmered in every color as the stars moved across the sky. Alira entered first.
All eyes turned
toward her. Then came Jace. He walked slowly, his heart pounding, but his eyes were on her only. They met at the center, where the ancient bonding stone floated between them, glowing, waiting. The Empress stood between them. She raised her hands. "Do you come of your own will?"
Yes.
Alira said. "Yes," Jace said. "Do you swear to protect, to cherish, and to share one path?" They both nodded. Double quotes, then place your hands on the stone. And Alira reached forward. The moment their fingers touched the crystal, flash of light burst through the room. Everyone gasped. The stone glowed with deep golden fire, color seen only once every 100 years. The Empress's eyes widened. This is not just a bond. This is a soul match." The room erupted in whispers. Alira looked at Jace, stunned. "A soul match?" he asked quietly. It means, she whispered, we were meant for each other, chosen by fate.
Their
Hands stayed on the stone as the energy wrapped around them like a glowing thread, and just like that it was done. They were now truly bonded. Spiritually, emotionally. Completely. The celebrations that followed lasted 3 days. People across the empire celebrated. On Earth, news feeds exploded with headlines. First Royal Zyran human bond confirmed. War hero marries alien princess. But not everyone was happy. In a dark chamber beneath the palace, Lord Theric stared at a glowing screen. He watched the bonding ceremony again and again. This wasn't part of the plan, he hissed. The bond was supposed to be fake. A tall shadow stepped beside him. It's real now. Theroc's eyes narrowed. Then we make it painful. He opened a black case. Inside was a strange device, old tech. Forbidden. Time to break more than just a bond, he whispered. Back in the royal wing, Jace and Alira stood on the balcony looking over the city. Fireworks danced in the sky. Do you regret it? He asked. He turned to her. She smiled. Neither do I. They stood close, her hand resting on his chest, his arm wrapped gently around her. The silence was warm, peaceful, but then a sudden flicker in the lights. Jace tensed. Did you see that? Alira nodded. System. Glitch. But the palace didn't glitch. Not like this. Suddenly an alarm blared. Jace stepped forward, grabbing his cum. Control? What's happening? No answer? Alira touched her wristband. Palace net is down. Jace's eyes narrowed. We're under attack. In seconds, masked soldiers appeared in the hallway. Their armor bore no symbols. Mercenaries. JACE. Drew his weapon. Stay behind me. Lyra summoned a small energy shield. I can fight. They moved together, clearing the halls, protecting each other like they'd trained for months. Jace shot fast, taking down enemies with expert precision. Alira used energy waves to block paths and trap attackers. They made it to the throne room. The Empress stood with 2 guards. Who dares attack us now? A blast hit the wall. Figure stepped through the smoke. Lord Theric. You should have chosen me, Alira, he growled. The Empress raised her hand. You were exiled. You have no right. He laughed. Rights are for the weak. He pointed a strange device at the bonded pair. This machine, he said, breaks soul bonds. Tears them apart painfully. Jace stepped in front of Alira. He'll go through me. Plan 2. Theric sneered, activating the weapon. A wave of dark energy hit Jace. He screamed, dropping to his knees. Alira rushed forward. No, she grabbed the device with both hands, and her glow turned blinding white. With a cry of fury, she channeled her energy into the machine, overloading it. There was a blast of white and blue light. When the smoke cleared, the device was broken. Theric lay unconscious. Jace groaned, coughing. I'm okay. Lyra pulled him into her arms. Don't ever do that again. He smiled weakly. Can't make promises now, wife. Later, as the sun rose over Velmora, the Empress called. A special court. She looked at Alira and Jace. You've proven your bond not just to me but to the galaxy. She turned to the people. Let all know the bond between Zyran and human is sacred. Real. Shh. Jace and Alira stood together, their hands locked. Their path now one. But they knew this was only the beginning. And war still lingered in the shadows. The palace was quiet after the attack. The walls had been repaired. The floors were clean again. But the feeling of danger still floated in the air. Princess Alira stood near the large balcony, watching the stars fade as dawn arrived beside her. Jace Thorne adjusted the strap on his shoulder armor. They were no longer pretending. They were no longer playing a role. They were bonded by fate, by choice, and by battle. Alira looked at him. You're going to the council meeting? Yes, Jace said. They want me to take a formal position. High Protector. That's a powerful title. I told them I'm just a soldier. She smiled. You're more than that now. You're a symbol. Jace stepped closer too. Her? I didn't want to be a symbol. I only wanted to be with you. She touched his cheek gently. Then you already have the most important role. In the council chamber, the Empress sat on her throne, surrounded by nobles, generals, and advisors. "Commander Jace Thorn," she announced, "you have saved my daughter. You have stood beside her through lies, fire, and truth. The people trust you. The army respects you." Jace stood tall in his black and silver uniform. His face was calm, but his eyes searched the crowd carefully. "I do not seek power," he said. "I didn't come here to rule. But if you need a protector, if Velmora needs someone who speaks for peace and strength, I will serve." The chamber remained silent for a moment, then applause broke out, even the harshest. Counselors nodded in respect. The Empress raised her hand. "Then let it be known Jace Thorn is now High Protector of Velmora." Later that evening, Jace returned to Alira's chamber. He found her waiting by a small table, a map spread out before her. "What's that?" he asked. "Plans," she said. "Ideas for the future." He looked closer. It showed new trade routes between Earth and Zyran colonies. Human advisors placed beside alien ambassadors. Shared schools. Open ports. "You're changing everything," he said. "We're changing everything," she corrected. He smiled. "Sure the council will accept all this?" She looked into his eyes. "They accepted a human husband. They'll accept peace." Next, Jace leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Their ex-supporters are still out there. Some want revenge." "I know," Alira said, "but I'm not afraid anymore." He walked over and gently pulled her into his arms. "You don't have to face them alone." She rested her head on his chest. "I never thought I'd have this. Not love, not safety, not you." Jace kissed her hair. "And I never thought I'd be married to the most powerful woman in the galaxy." She laughed softly. "You just married the most stubborn one." Days passed, and weeks. Together, Alira and Jace traveled across Zyran space. They visited planets torn by war and brought healing supplies. They gave speeches together speaking of unity between species. Humans and Zyrines began working side by side. One human farmer on a moon colony told Jace, "When I saw the news about you and her, I cried. It gave us hope." Jace didn't know what to say. He simply shook the man's hand and said, "We're doing our best," and they were. Alira stood proudly at every event, her hand in his, her voice strong, her heart full. Even when threats came silent, assassins, poison traps, political whispers, Jace stayed close. Always alert, always calm. He was no longer just her fake husband. He was her shield, her partner, her love. One night back at the royal palace, Alira and Jace sat in the garden, under glowing trees. Stars blinked above them. Earth was visible, just a small blue dot in the sky. Jace looked up. "Hard to believe I came from that little world." Alira leaned against him. "And yet you changed this one." He smiled. "Want to visit Earth one day?" "I do," she said. "I want to see where you grew up, taste your food, hear your music. I'll take you to the ocean," he said. "You'll love it. No palaces, just waves." "And you?" she asked. "Would you live there again?" He thought for a moment. "Only if you were with me." They sat in silence, listening to the night sounds. Alira looked up at him. "You know, when I first hired you, I thought you'd be cold, uncaring, and I thought you were arrogant." She smiled. "We were both wrong." He held her hand, and lucky. Soon the Empress announced her retirement. She had ruled for 70 years. The Empire needed a new leader. Everyone expected Alira to take the throne. But she stood before the council and shocked them all. "I will not rule alone," she said. "This is not just my empire anymore. It belongs to both Zyrines and humans, to unity." We turned to Jace. "And I will share the throne with the man who stood with me from the beginning." Jace froze. "What?" Alira smiled. "You married? Me too. Protect me. You loved me even when it was dangerous. You fought for this empire when no one asked you to." "I'm not a ruler," he whispered. "You're my husband," she said. "That's enough." The crowd stood in silence. Then, applause, thunderous, real. The council bowed, and Jace Thorn, former soldier from Earth, became the first human curler of the Zyran Empire, in time. They built something new. Not just peace, not just politics, but family. Alira and Jace didn't live like old rulers in stone castles. They traveled often, visited both Earth and Zyran cities. They sat with workers, ate with soldiers, played with children. Jay helped design training centers that combined human and alien combat styles. Alira led schools that taught it's about both worlds, so no child ever had to feel lesser again. One day, Alira placed a small object into Jace's hand. He opened it. Inside was a glowing stone. "I'm pregnant," she said softly. Jace stared, then laughed, then hugged her tight. Their child would be the first of a new generation, part Earth, part Zyran. A living bond of two worlds. Years later, Jace stood once again on the palace balcony. Watching the city glow below, Alira joined him. Her hair was longer now, her eyes still bright. She looked at him. "Do you remember the day I first asked you to pretend to be my husband?" He laughed. "You didn't ask. You ordered," she grinned. "True." He turned serious. "You saved me that job. That fake bond. It gave me purpose again." She leaned into him. "You gave me more than purpose. You gave me love and freedom." He wrapped his arm around her. They stood together. No longer pretending, no longer hiding, just a soldier and a princess. It became real.